It's the worst of the CBC for October 26, 2020, the show where I watch the CBC so you don't have to. And yes, it's back, we're doing it. So, for everyone who's new, here's how it works. Every day, I will watch 1 hour of the CBC. Now I'm going to say it's The National. I will watch CBC's The National. Last night's The National. Then today, I will relay to you what the worst story on The National was, and then I will do the story that they omitted that they should have covered. That's how it works. Then, every episode is rated on the Rosemary Barden scale of bias. So the more Rosemary Bardens out of 10, the more biased the report was. So a 1 is very good. It was watchable, almost news. 10, I nearly killed myself. Now, the reason this program went away is the pandemic started and literally every hour of every CBC show was the same for weeks on end. It drove me crazy, and then to avoid going completely insane, I had to put the show on hiatus. So, the new rule is only once per week will I ever cover a story about COVID-19, or else I'll always be up there, the numbers, and I don't want to be that guy. So, one COVID story per week. That's what we're doing. Let's get into it. Okay, so the worst of the CBC, worst covered story today, it's sort of an amalgamation of just what they did the entire time, basically covering the election. Now, of course, it's the CBC, which is the publicly funded Canadian broadcaster, which means they lead with the American elections over the Canadian elections going on, because why not? Why not? So there's so many, and we're going to mix stories, but I mean, some of my favorite one is they were doing a story on why Arizona's going to flip to Joe Biden. Now, to their credit, they at least mention the fact that it has to do with a lot of Californians leaving their state and going other places. Now, it doesn't mention why Californians are leaving their state. No, the failed policies enacted by people who support Joe Biden. But, take what you get. Now, my favorite line from this entire thing is they interviewed, after saying, he hates all Hispanics, they interviewed a Mexican-American business owner, Sylvia something. And after talking about Trump, he's racist and racist, this. And they said the line, after she talked about, he's good for my business. Sylvia actually believes that Donald Trump is good for small businesses. And the tone was ridiculous. She actually believes that Donald Trump, who lowers taxes on small businesses, keeps talking about how important small businesses is good for small business, over Joe Biden, who wants to tax small businesses. What an insane woman. And then they're saying, this is common if we count in the Trump people. They actually believe Trump is good for the country. Yeah, that's what Trump supporters believe, that Trump is better for the country than Joe Biden. That's why they support Trump. Do you know that Joe Biden supporters actually believe Joe Biden is better for America than Donald Trump? Can you believe that? So, more hard-hitting news from our tax dollars. Now, let's get into the Canadian election they covered. So, the first story is about COVID, right? And how it's going to kill us all, and how, you're going to kill it. We're all dead. We're basically all already dead right now. So we're all dead, and it's the worst thing, and we're all going to die. If we even step outside, we're going to die twice. They were talking about Joe Horgan's re-election in BC, and he's the NDP, so he's the far-left candidate. And they're talking about how brilliant it was that he called an election during the pandemic when he was popular. And this strategy really paid off. Can you imagine if a conservative did that? Called an election in the middle of a pandemic that's going to kill us all. Right? Brilliant doing it, right? And they didn't cover the fact that there was a legal challenge to the election. Was it even legal he could do that? No, he's just so brilliant calling of the election. Oh. Then we shift to Saskatchewan and the Saskatchewan party, and they go into they cover up, they promote the new NDP guy, even though he has 13 seats to the Saskatchewan party, is 45. He's great, and he's a family doctor, and he's fighting for justice, and blah, blah, blah. And they show Scott Moe. And then they talked about how the NDP lost power in the 90s for, a lot of failures, which they blame on the Conservatives. They blame the NDP failures in the 90s on the Conservatives in the 80s, okay? In discussion. Remember, they did this. Then they go on to show Scott Moe and talk about how Scott Moe was living in the past by bringing up the failed NDP government in the 90s. Here's the actual line he said. They took this one line out of his speech. Let me... do we want to return to the dark days of the NDP? Scott Moe said, do we want to return to the dark days of NDP? And they had specialists come on and say, oh my God, could you imagine? This is like an Ontario election talking about Mike Harris or Bob Rae. Do you not remember the Ontario election of Doug Ford, where the Liberals were literally screaming about Mike Harris? Do you not remember Justin Trudeau, who literally complains about Stephen Harper every day? So, I mean, the rank hypocrisy is just brilliant. And then my favorite last one I'm just going to cover just one line because I love this. They're doing a breakdown of how Joe Biden would be good for Canada and all that. And one of the things was they're like, one of the benefits that we've been having is Canadians have been enjoying increased levels of immigration due to Donald Trump. Yes, all of you have been enjoying the immigration. And if Joe Biden gets in, more immigrants might go to the United States instead of Canada. So we might get less immigrants. Oh no, because that's clearly the popular opinion in Canada right now. Everyone is enjoying the increased immigration in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know why you aren't. All right, so that's the worst story. Story they should have covered. If we're going to talk about Joe Biden, can we talk about Hunter Biden and the laptop? Not a single mention. Not a single mention. Not one. Pictures coming out of Malia Obama. Apparently, I saw a picture of Malia Obama's credit card on Hunter Biden's laptop covered in cocaine with pictures of Malia on it. Like, scandalous, maybe. If Ivanka was caught with, pictures of, I don't know, does Mike Pence have kids? He must have kids. They must be very boring. But if one of Mike Pence's really boring kids was caught, with cocaine over Eric Trump's credit card, I think we'd be talking about that. Can we not, the connections to China, the trove of evidence, emails, photos, testimony of Hunter Biden's old business partner saying that basically they got phony deals and were paid off by the Chinese. But we talked about how Joe Biden believes in alliances. Joe Biden believes in alliances. Would use alliances against China. Yes, Joe Biden clearly the strong anti-China candidate. That's what we're going with. Yes, that's highly believable. The other honorable mention for story they didn't cover, at the Jews for Trump rally, there was in New York a white woman, went up to a car of a Jewish family, just a family with kids in it, and started pepper spraying inside the car because they were Trump supporters and Jews. Gonna cover that anti-Semitism? Nope. No coverage. Zero coverage. Okay, good to know we don't care about the Jews still. Thank you for the left for confirming that. So that's today's CBC. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 on the Rosemary Barden scale. This is get 8 Rosemary Bardens out of 10 Rosemary Bardens. And I will see everyone tomorrow, predicated on the fact that I don't go insane watching this CBC National again and again and again and again and again. God help me.